There's this idea in society that if you never show your emotions, it makes you strong. It's primarily in Western cultures, but I'm sure it's probably somewhat global at this rate. And I really disagree with this notion because here's the thing. The true strongest people out there in terms of their emotions are people who feel their emotions but choose not to act on them. That's quite different from people who just straight up choose not to show emotion or to even just suppress or ignore their emotions, because that's quite often what happens with people who never show their emotions. They haven't learned how to deal with their emotions in a healthy manner, so they immediately believe that the way that makes them appear the strongest is to suppress or ignore their emotions, to act like they don't have any, to never feel any emotion. But that isn't strength at all. That's a coping mechanism, because those people haven't figured out how to deal with their emotions in a healthy way. So they cope with it by just trying to be apathetic or pretending to be apathetic. So that's not true strength. That's more insecurity masquerading as strength. Because true strength is having the courage to show emotion, but just to not act on it. There is a difference there. Because, for instance, let's say in a situation someone is making you angry, you can show that they are making you angry without acting on that. Because acting on your anger would be yelling at them, wanting to start a fist fight with them, wanting to throw something at them, that sort of thing. But showing your anger could literally just be your face goes from neutral to now you've got your brows furrowed and maybe you're giving them a bit of a death stare. But at least you're not acting on it in that you're not yelling at them, you're not throwing things at them. You get my point. So you can show emotion without acting on it. Those are different things, and quite often it is pretty difficult to completely hide the emotions that you're feeling unless you really practice that. But I don't even know if that's a beneficial thing, because now that's very manipulative, because it allows you to kind of lie to people about what you're feeling. I think authenticity is still one of the best things out there and the best ways of connecting with other people. And yeah, your authenticity often means showing people your emotions. So I don't think society has it right with this whole idea that never showing your emotions makes you strong. That's BS. It's more feeling them, being comfortable with showing them to some extent, but not acting on them. That's the key. Because suppressing them and ignoring them is really unhealthy. In a way, you can kind of think of it like, let's say your emotions are the equivalent of dinosaur bones in some soil. Well, if you are constantly suppressing and ignoring your emotions, all you're doing is shoving those bones further down into the soil. But that's not getting rid of them, right? Like, they're still there. You haven't gotten rid of them. You just shove them really down deep into the dirt. But all it takes is some crazy weather to come along to erode the soil, and now those bones are back up at the surface again. That's what happens when you try to suppress or ignore your emotions. You just shove them down for a bit until another event happens that's similar to whatever originally caused those emotions in your body, and now it triggers them straight back to the surface. And you'll probably even have a bigger reaction than normal because you suppressed and ignored those emotions. So they've just been sitting there brooding over time. And now they're right back on the surface, bigger than ever before. So it's not good to suppress your emotions. The healthiest way to deal with them is, to just feel them, to fully feel them, even if it sucks, because sometimes, we don't feel good. We feel mad, we feel frustrated, we feel lonely, we feel sad, maybe even a bit depressed. But you can feel those emotions without acting on them. And sure, it's not fun most of the time, but as long as you don't act on them, you're not going to do anything that's going to make those emotions worse. They won't become amplified. I mean, as soon as you start acting on your emotions, quite often we make things worse. It rarely ever leads to things becoming better unless the emotions you're acting on are actually more positive, good emotions. But even then, sometimes you can get into trouble by acting on them. So, for the most part, you don't want to act on your emotions, or at least you want to create a gap between feeling them and acting on them. As long of a gap as possible, you want to delay acting, because it's just, quite often when we act on our emotions, we lose connection to our logical brain. That's no good. That means we'll make bad decisions, we'll do things that we regret, and we can easily make a fool of ourselves. But if we're alone when it happens, we can just end up doing something that's harmful to ourselves, or just something that will make us feel even worse after the fact. So, in general, you want to feel your emotions, but just not act on them. And here's another thing I want to talk about that's kind of interesting. Since society often portrays not showing your emotions as this strength, you have a lot of people masquerading around believing they're strong because they don't ever show their emotions. But quite often, those people aren't strong at all. Because they're just, all it takes is one triggering enough event, one big enough event for them to just burst. Because, like I said earlier, many people haven't learned how to deal with their emotions in a healthy way. So most people suppress or ignore their emotions when they never show it. So yeah, those people are basically just walking or ticking time bombs, waiting to explode full of emotions. You'll even see this quite often online. It's funny. There's a lot of guys out there who pretend to be alphas. They'll even tell their audiences that they're alphas, which is hilarious on its own. But you'll find some of them, if somebody brings up something that is really deep and personal to them or something they're insecure about, they will blow up. Like, they will get really mad and start having a huge emotional response. And it's interesting because they act emotionless otherwise up until that event. But then once that event triggers them, it opens the floodgates for all that pent up emotions that they were trying to store, that they were trying to hide, because they don't have a healthy relationship with their emotions. So don't let this happen to you. Don't think that never showing your emotion makes you strong. It doesn't. What makes you strong is feeling your emotions, being comfortable with showing it from time to time, but not acting on it. Remember that example I already went over about how you can feel anger and you can show it without acting on it. Like, you don't need to be worried about never showing your emotions to people. Just don't act on them. So that's the most important thing. I mean, there have been so many times in my life where, I don't necessarily try to be an open book per se, but I don't try to hide my emotions either, really. People will often know what I'm feeling because my face will express it, or maybe my body language will express it as well. But they often won't know how I'm feeling if they were to just look at my actions alone, because I don't really act on my emotions too often. I try not to yell at people. I try not to, I don't ever really start fights with people. That's not a good thing. I know way too well how fights could end in so many different ways, and even a simple street fight can sometimes lead in someone dying, so it's not worth it. It's not something I ever engage in. But yeah, there are times where my emotions will be conveyed via, like I said, my body language, my face, but that doesn't worry me at all. I don't think that makes me weaker to other people because I'm not acting on my emotions. So that's a key distinction. Just make sure you don't act on them. If anything, I think showing your emotion in ways that don't involve acting on them like that, it's healthy. It's a good thing. It's authentic. It's just basically showing the world that, yeah, you feel things too, but you have enough self-control, and this is what makes you strong, to not act on those emotions. That's the most important thing. Because, yeah, society does often believe, just to give a specific example, that the strongest men are the men who never show their emotion. But it's more so the strongest men are the men who feel their emotions but don't act on them. Those are the strongest men. Those are the grounded men. The men that will feel all sorts of emotions. They don't suppress them or try to hide them. It's just more so they won't act on them. So if somebody makes them angry, yeah, you'll probably see them have some sort of reaction to that. They may be a bit angry, or maybe a lot of them will probably be able to remain grounded through it because they're just not going to get riled up over it. And that will also make people think they're emotionless when they're actually not. It's more so they've worked on themselves enough to not get triggered at all by stupid things from other people, but then they won't act on those emotions at all. They won't. So that's what makes them come off like these paragons that are these emotionless paragons of goodness and groundedness in society. But it's more, it's not that they don't feel their emotions, it's just that they never act on them, or at least as much as possible they don't act on them. And just to close my video off with one last point here, to all the guys out there who do believe that women find it more attractive if you never show emotion, That's not true. Think about this. Women are so in tune with their emotions that they want to know that you feel emotions. They want to know that you're in tune with your emotions as well. But they don't want you to be the type of man to easily act on your emotions. So going back to what I was just talking about, those men who are grounded, who feel their emotions but choose not to act on them, they're very attractive to women because women will pick up that, yeah, they're in tune with their emotions. They feel things. They have many different emotional reactions to life in general, but they won't act on them. So when they get angry at someone, they're not immediately going to mouth off to that person. They're not going to want to fight them, especially if they're at a bar. They're not going to start any unnecessary fights because they're going to know that that's stupid. It's not worth it. And if they get sad, they're not immediately going to start binge eating food or binge drinking or binge smoking weed or hurting themselves to feel better. None of that. They'll just feel that sadness. Maybe they'll need some alone time away from their girlfriend or their wife for a tiny bit. But once they've worked through those emotions, once they've felt them, then they come right back to normal life and they feel better. So guys, never think that you need to hide your emotions from your girlfriends and your wives or the women you're dating. The whole point here is that you just shouldn't act on those emotions. And also, you shouldn't be afraid of showing your emotions in front of a woman. If she has a bad reaction to your emotions and starts thinking that you're weaker for showing them, she's simply not your woman. That's all there is to it. Don't immediately start feeling bad for yourself. Don't start thinking you can't show emotions to any woman whatsoever. No, immediately think this one woman is not a good match for me because she clearly doesn't have a high enough level of maturity herself to deal with a real man, a man who actually feels his emotions but doesn't act on them. So just wanted to put that out there because so many guys online perpetuate this stupid idea or notion that you should never show emotion to women. It's BS. Women want you to show emotion. They don't want to think you're some emotionless robot. That's not attractive to any woman out there except for the ones who are, the ones who haven't done a lot of work on themselves. So they're not the type of women you want to be attracting anyway. But that's all I pretty much wanted to say for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you like content like this, be sure to subscribe. Otherwise, like the video and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you have anything interesting you would like to add to the conversation. I always read all the comments and I love seeing what you guys have to say. So remember guys, we're all on this journey together. So the most important thing is that you just keep going, keep moving forward, keep working on developing a healthier relationship to your emotions, and remind yourself, the strongest people are not people who suppress or ignore their emotions or never show them. The strongest people are those who feel their emotions but choose not to act on them. I'll see you guys in the next video. Arrivederci!